The subject that I wrote was during this time, Rabies, the Big Scam. I looked at this even when I was a conventional veterinarian in New York. The rabies issue is a human health issue, Gilberto, okay, because it's such a profound disease that once a life, a human or animal, comes down with rabies, it's fatal. There is no known cure for the rabies. And I've seen both animals and humans in the two forms of rabies, which is the dumb form and the vicious form. And it's not pleasant under any circumstances. So the rabies issue is a human health issue. Now, how do you want to protect the humans? You have to go to the animals that are closest to the human, which is the dogs and cats that are in our lives as our pets. Now, and I'm talking just the United States, the 4 favorite animals that come down with rabies in the environment that present a threat to the dogs and cats and then the humans are skunk, raccoon, bat, and skunk, raccoon, bat. Oh God, skunk, raccoon, bat. There's 4 of them there, and suddenly I've got a brain fart here that I can't come up with the other animal at this point. I'll think about it here in a minute, and I'll get it. Mm-hmm. These 4 animals are in the environment of the United States. They're the ones that carry the rabies virus that can be transmitted to a dog or cat. Now, the rabies virus is a neurotrophic virus. That means it attacks the nervous system of the animal or the human. It is only presented by the bite of an animal that has the rabies virus in the saliva. You okay with me so far?
Yes.
It cannot be transmitted any other way. It's in the virus is in the saliva. And when an animal that carries that virus bites another animal or a human, that rabies virus attaches itself to the nervous system of that animal or that person. It finds a nerve, travels on the nerve, and it replicates itself up to the spinal cord, and then it goes up into the brain. And the brain is called the hippocampus. That's in the middle portion of the brain. And it then eventually causes respiratory and cardiac arrest and death in the animal or the person's eyes. So I looked at this rabies issue, and I'm saying, okay, if this is the particular case, which it is, why is there such a push on having animals vaccinated for rabies when there's no possible chance of them getting the rabies from an animal that has the rabies? A little toy poodle, 3-pound toy poodle in New York City that goes on a pee pad, that animal is not going to come down with rabies. It's not going to be bitten by a rabbit or a rat or a bat or a skunk or a fox or anything of that. Now, raccoon. The raccoon is the other 4th animal. It's not going to be bitten. Why is it being pushed that way? Well, the answer is because of power, control, domination, and money. Now, the United States has millions and millions of laws on the book. Every one of us, even as we're sitting here right now, are guilty of violating some sort of law that we have no idea exists. What is a law, Gilberto? It's words put on a piece of paper by a person or persons who want to make us do something we ordinarily would not do, or to prevent us from doing something that we ordinarily would do. A law is a control, an enslavement mechanism on humans for behavior compliance.
Can we be specific? Like, because the law that I discovered that exists is once your dog is over 4 months or something, you are required to get a license for it. That way, that every year you have to renew a vaccination, or I guess somehow every 3 years for some other vaccination. But you just have to repeat the cycle. So can you explain like this law? How did this? I don't know if you remembered when it came into place. Like, yeah, can you expand on that?
Yeah. Again, animal control. It's a behavior situation. The veterinarians, the animal control, the lawyers, the politicians, the bureaucrats, they all got together on this particular issue, okay? And they decided that one way to control a person and hopefully prevent a person from getting the disease rabies is to have every animal licensed, okay? You pay a tax. If they're not spayed, it's a higher tax. If they're spayed, it's a lower tax. But they insist on the rabies vaccination because it's such a health issue with human beings under the circumstances, okay? So one way to get compliance is to say, hey, you get a license, you pay a tax, and you get the vaccines. If you don't, we're going to punish you. And I have had hundreds of cases in my career all over the country of people calling up, threatening to have their animals taken from them. I've had people fined and brought into court before a judge because they wouldn't cooperate on getting a license and a rabies vaccine.
Wow.
It's a control mechanism, Gilbert. Okay, now let's look at the rabies vaccine. Okay, you have two types of vaccines. You have a killed and a modified live virus vaccine. This is all the vaccines. Let's take the rabies. The rabies is a killed virus vaccine. That means the rabies virus was killed by either heat or chemicals. But there's a protein covering of the virus. So when that is injected into an animal or a person, it stimulates the immune system of that animal or person to produce antibodies, the protein antibodies against the virus. So yes, the vaccines work to some degree in producing immunity, but there's a price to pay because of the damage that the vaccines cause over and above producing the antibodies. And I'll come to that in a minute. Now you have a modified live virus vaccine. Now this is where they take the virus and they plant it on agar plates. And then they take that and go to another one and another one and another one. And the vaccines companies have found that after a certain serial plating, maybe something like 20, 30, or 40 of them, that virus loses the ability in most cases to cause the disease, but it's still strong enough to produce the immunity. The modified live virus vaccines are more potent than the kill. You get more and better protection and immunity, but there's a greater risk of coming down with the disease if that virus breaks. You with me so far?
So it's more risky.
It's more risky under the circumstances. So that's why you want to prefer, in the rabies case, the killed rabies. It still produces the immunity, but it doesn't last as long as the modified live virus. So now, the veterinarians, the politicians, the lawyers, they come up with these arbitrary situations, and they're all arbitrary. There's not really based on a lot of scientific data. They come up with these arbitrary situations that you need the rabies by, say, 4 months of age, something of that particular nature. Well, that particular dog or cat, their immune system is not developed enough to produce the type of immunity that you would expect at 4 months of age. It's better to wait 8, 9, 10 months of age, maybe a year. But if you wait that long, you're not necessarily in compliance with the control mechanism that these other people who have a vested interest in making money want to put upon you. I know this sounds crazy, but it's the truth. I'm not making any of this stuff up. After 60 years of confronting this stuff, I know what I'm talking about here.
Yeah, I mean, I also read a Reddit post of people talking about this in Orange County, and there's some people that are like, they say, yeah, well, it funds the poop bags and the trails or something, and of course you have to pay a license. It's like a car or something like that, and it's just they're kind of, I don't know, offending people who don't fall in line. And there's people that obviously are saying like, what is this? It's just like a Chihuahua. You're seeing a Chihuahua as like a threat or something, and like everybody's a killer pit bull owner.
Yeah, well, a lot of it is stupidity. But again, you have to think of power, control, domination, and money. That's what drives these evil people, and they are evil to a large extent to do some of the things that they're doing. You can take a 2-pound Chihuahua and it gets the same type of vaccine, the quantity of rabies vaccine, as a 150-pound Saint Bernard gets. Now, where is that scientific evidence I mean, does that truly make sense to anybody who's not even a scientist or a veterinarian? But then you have the immunity factor. That young animal has to have an immune system that's willing to respond to the rabies vaccine to produce the protein antibodies for immunity. And that has some maturity factor involved. It used to be you had to be at least 6 months of age. Now they're moving it down to 4 months. Why? To get more compliance under the circumstances and to get more people on board to have the vaccine and to have the tag so they can charge you 25 or 35 or whatever the tax happens to be to get a tag on your animal. Otherwise, leave the male dog alone. If they're not being obnoxious and you don't have a problem with them, leave them the hell alone. But the vets will push that. Why? Because they get hundreds of dollars to surgery, anesthesia, and hospitalization, and drugs and everything else. Make sense?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like a one size fits all, and whoever falls for it, kind of.
That's exactly right. Everybody is thrown into the same lump, no matter what the situation and the circumstances happen to be. That's one of the main reason I wrote that article. And that article has been all over the world on the internet, the rabies miasm, and everything I wrote. This was in the early 90s. So, I mean, hell, you're talking, what, 30, 35 years ago? Everything in that article pertains to today, to be perfectly frank about it. And I get calls on that article all the time from people who, with this rabies situation and the tags and animal control, and I help them out as best I can. But, you know, a lot of people are fearful, and it's one emotion that you can control a human being is you put fear into them. Fear that you're going to punish them. You don't file 1040s and pay taxes. You don't get the rabies vaccine. You don't get the tag. You don't get the driver's license. You don't do this. You don't do that. We're going to punish you.
Yeah, I mean, who's more likely to not pay that license? Probably like financially, people that aren't financially well off that have a bunch of dogs. They're just gonna not do it. They're gonna break the law. Like, what are they gonna do?
Yeah, they don't care. They could chain them up in the yard, something like that. Do you honestly think that the homeless or the people on poor or poverty levels or whatever it happens to be, do you honestly think they're going to obey the law, get a license? Hey, they can't even put food on the table in some cases. They're not going to pay money for a rabies vaccine and a license for their dog or their cat. They're going to violate the law. And invariably, animal control will not go after those people, Gilberto. They'll go after middle class or upper lower class or lower high class. What the people who can afford it, they'll go after them because they know they can get them with the money and the license fee because they're afraid of being punished. The people that having a hard time surviving, they're not afraid of being punished.
Yeah, they have little to lose, right? Because in the beginning of our country, they revolted against the T tax, right? It was I don't know how much percentage, but it was annoying, right? So to compare it to this dog tax, dog license, it's about the same thing. And I'm surprised people like, I'll link the Reddit post in the description when I upload it. People just like think it's normal and like it. They kind of accept it out of fear. I don't know if they're just gullible.
When a person gets dumbed down, they lose the ability to think that freedom and independence is valuable to them. Or again, they're on their knees, licking their boots. We want to survive. We want to get in front of the boob tube. We want to watch Taylor Swift. We want to have a beer and a pizza, whatever the hell it happens to be. Okay, they're not willing to go the extra step for things that are important to them because they can't see beyond a few minutes or a few seconds or a day. They can't see 6 months down the line or 5 years or 10 years down the line.
I mean, it's funny that cat licenses are optional because I think they know that there's cat ladies out there with like 5 cats and 6 cats, and that's, you know, who's going to pay the yearly licenses. But it's just nonsensical at some point. Like, would you have any type of pet? You have to have a license for them. You kind of have to start questioning it, you know?
Well, the cat is easy. The cat is a house cat unless you're irresponsible and let your cat out and roam, which you should never do. All my cats, they were house cats. I never let them out unless I was stupid enough to leave the garage door open and then they escaped on me. But that's on me. That wasn't on the cat. The cats you can keep in the house. So how does somebody know that you have a cat? You open your mouth and you tell people you have a cat or cats, or some way, somehow they come into your house and they see the cats. Oh, I'm going to be a Karen, so to speak, and I'm going to report you to animal control. The dog is a different story. Most dogs are either in the yard, even if they're kept on the property, or you walk them. You take them to a park, let them run, jump, get some exercise, go on a trail with you, whatever it happens to be. Then for God's sakes, be a responsible pet owner. Don't let them bite or traumatize or show any aggression under the circumstance. Make sure that you have your dog under control at all times, and then get a tag that looks like a rabies tag. And as long as you are responsible, fly under the radar, it's very unusual for a person to get in trouble, a pet owner to get in trouble. The ones that get in trouble, they let their dogs run loose. They go to the bathroom on the neighbor's lawn. They tear up the roses, or they jump on the children, threatening the children, scaring them. It's these type of people that give the rest of them a bad rep, so to speak. And that's when you get the law coming into play. If you fly under the radar, if you do a little bit of what I've said over the years in this interview, or even with the rabies article, you don't usually have much problem, to be honest with you.